morning and happy Monday. I am just about to edit the last vlog that I did, which you guys would have seen by the time you're seeing this one. But as I mentioned in the last one, we're gonna jump right on into a reading vlog because, as we probably all know, I've mentioned it a few times, Dragon Age the Veilguard is coming out on Halloween, which is actually on Thursday. And somebody mentioned when I was talking about like my different TBRs and like my whole video of like, what do I do? Do I do mini TBRs or big TBRs? That, hey, there's Dragon Age book things leading into the next game. And like, I knew that because I've actually read most of them, but not all of them. And so I have decided that I'm going to reread the things that are important going from one game to the next, so from Inquisition to the Veilguard. So one of the things is Dragon Age Tevinter Nights. This is a short story collection that's like 400, almost 500 pages long. Oh, just under 500 pages long. And I actually read an arc of this forever ago, whatever year this came out. Like, I read it before it came out. I was so excited to read it. 2020. It's been 4 years since I've read this book. And so these are short stories in between Inquisition going into the Veilguard. They're going to introduce, I think, some of the characters that are going to be companions in the Veilguard, not all of them. And then we also have some comics. So we have other Dragon Age comics that you do not need to read going into the Veilguard. And I think some of these technically count, but I'm going to reread them. I have 4 of them here with me today. One is Dragon Age Magekiller. All of these are set after Inquisition going into the new game, Veilguard. But I don't think these first few that I'm going to talk about right now actually have too much like introduction for it. We'll see. We also have Dragon Age Knight Errant. These are all by Nunzio DeFilipis. We have Dragon Age Deception. This is when it started to get popular and they went to hardcovers. So the first 2 are only paperbacks. And we have Dragon Age Blue Wraith. These are all ones that I have read before. We have characters from previous Dragon Age games and things going into everything else. But I have ordered from Barnes & Noble, as well as borrowed from my library on Hoopla, 2 other comics. And these ones actually seem like maybe more important, or at least, okay. So in this series by Nunzio DeFilipis, we actually have another one called Dragon Age Dark Fortress, again, in between Inquisition and the Veilguard. But then the one that is important, the one that is, I think, directly leading into the Veilguard is Dragon Age The Missing, which is by George Mann. And this one, from my understanding, is directly following Varric, who was a companion in Dragon Age 2 as well as Inquisition, and Harding, who was not a companion but was a character introduced in Inquisition, who is now going to be a companion in the Veilguard, and them specifically trying to find Solas, who is one of the main characters from like Inquisition and Veilguard and all this kind of stuff. I should probably mention now, this is probably going to be a spoiler-filled vlog because I'm reading things that I've already read, reading things as we like go into Veilguard, and I sort of want to like take my time and read these things and like let you know if I'm seeing characters pop up in them that are going to be in the Veilguard. I'm going to be very obsessed with the Veilguard, and so I am going to probably have spoilers. So The Missing is something I think that is the most recent release and is the one that is like directly going into the Veilguard. So that's the one I'm gonna read last. So I was looking at what I have here. Today is Monday. The game comes out on Thursday and I've already pre-ordered it. I think based on that, I technically only have like 3 days to read all of this if I want to be done before I start the game. So this is gonna be a very speed run type of vlog, it seems like. There are 15 stories in here, if I am not mistaken. I'm gonna have to double check. I checked last night. 15. So that means I need to do like 5 stories a day. Plus, we're gonna have 6 comic collections. These are quicker. I don't think that's as bad. But I have like 4 right now, plus 2 more from the library, although they're supposed to be in from Barnes & Noble today. They were supposed to be in from Barnes & Noble on Friday and then Saturday, and then it pushed to Sunday, which means today, Monday, because of the fact that like USPS. That means I have to read quite a bit. Let's see, the first 5 stories in here. Story 6 starts on page 164. Story 11 starts on page 323. So yeah, we're at about 150, 160 pages per day to finish this. The thing is, I've read this before. I was really, really hoping for an audiobook for this. I do not see one through my library or anything like that. We're gonna try our best. One thing also, because I read this as an ARC, I did not even realize, I did purchase this for myself like a year or 2 after I read it as an ARC. It has a map of Thedas, which is our game world here. I am very, very intrigued to see where Veilguard is going to go with this, because in Dragon Age Origins, we were only in Ferelden. In Dragon Age 2, we were basically just in Kirkwall. In Dragon Age Inquisition, we did get to go around a little bit more. So Ferelden was like a country, Kirkwall was more of a city. And then Dragon Age Inquisition, we did get to see more of Thedas, but it was very like, here's the little world you're going to be in. From my understanding, we are taking this and expanding upon it a whole lot more in Veilguard. So we're going to get to see a lot of places that we've only ever like heard about in the games and in stories and books and things like that. So I'm very, very excited. And yeah, part of the reason I wanted to do this as well, from what the other person was mentioning, because like one of the commenters was like, hey, you should do this because there are characters introduced that are going to be in games. And I was like, yeah, you're right, because one of the things that I did is I read Dragon Age Asunder before Inquisition came out. And while that whole book is only a small plot point of Dragon Age Inquisition, like you do get to see cameos from there. It's not necessarily like you had to read that book before you went into the video game, but it introduces Cole's whole backstory, and he was one of the companions in Inquisition. I liked doing that. I liked that I was able to get introduced to his character, and so when he showed up in the game, I was like, ooh, I know who that is. I really, really like him, because I got to see a lot of backstory. We don't really have a big novel to read going into this game. I know there was one novel that people are like, oh, you should read Dragon Age The Calling if you want to know more about griffins, because there is a griffin for one of your companions in the new game. But I don't think I want to read a whole novel that is technically like a really early prequel to like Dragon Age stuff, because it's not like a direct insert into the new game. So we're reading short stories and comics. And again, I don't even know if these ones are directly going to be related to in the game or not. However, I do know they are set directly between Inquisition and Veilguard. So that's why I'm going to reread these, plus gonna read Dark Fortress and The Missing, because The Missing is the one that's going to lead us into the game. That's the one I'm gonna read last. So yeah, this is probably a long introduction to say I'm going to be giving a bunch of spoilers for Dragon Age stuff in these books. And by spoilers, I mean anything that is in these books that is related to Inquisition, or I think might be related to the Veilguard, I will probably mention and also give my thoughts and things, because that's what I'm here for. Hopefully, if you found this video, that's what you're here for. I do not know anything else about the Veilguard except for like what people have talked about previously. However, I have been avoiding a lot of spoilers. So like I do have the Game Informer edition of Dragon Age Veilguard, and I have not read it because I heard there are spoilers in the interviews and stuff. And so I'm going in blind as you can be, having played the 3 previous Dragon Age games multiple times. So yeah, I need to edit first, and then we're going to probably jump into some of this, and then at least one comic collection today as well, which would end up being Magekiller as our first one. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, today is already not quite going the way I thought it was going to go. This is going to hopefully be a very, very, hopefully quick update. Elliot's not napping. It is 2:30. She did not want to go to nap. She was trying to eat her lunch as slow as possible today. So we went up to nap a little bit later. But she was also in bed for almost an entire hour, just not napping. And I think this happens every so often. Like I don't think she's necessarily ready to stop nap. However, she also is the one that falls asleep last. Like, Presley obviously falls asleep way before her, especially on school days. He's very, you know, like, excited and does stuff and active, and she's active, but like not in the same way, especially because she takes a nap in the afternoons. But she skipped a nap Saturday, I want to say it was. She skipped a nap today. It's just now too late for her to actually take a nap when I have to go pick him up in an hour. I have not finished editing yet, so I'm going to be doing that now. But I was hoping to have like finished this a little bit before now, because she would be sleeping, so that I could then get some reading done. Obviously, that did not happen, so I need to finish editing. Dinner tonight should be very quick and easy, so I'm hoping to, like, in the middle of doing stuff, get some reading done, because, like, I have set myself a very tight deadline for this. So, yeah. Okay, so it is going to be time for me to cook dinner, but I did want to say that I've read the first story in Tevinter Nights. It was almost 50 whole pages, and I definitely think it is a story that if you're not into the Dragon Age stuff, it is going to be very confusing to start off with, because it's really getting into Qunari, which is a race of characters. This one is one of them, specifically here, that we don't really know too much about in Dragon Age compared to some of the other ones. You do know more as you get into different games in the series. Like, you'd learn a little bit more about the nuances of them in Dragon Age Inquisition, whereas like in Dragon Age 2, the only ones that you know about are the bad guys of the game, at least, you know, some of the bad guys of the game. And so this story, I think 4 stars-ish, like it starts off not the best. Ooh, what is it?
A Minecraft sword.
Whoa, okay. It starts off with, like, slavery. So, I mean, it's one of those ones that has a darker tone, and I think Dragon Age in general is not going to pull a lot of punches. It does have a darker tone. In general, there is slavery in this world. It is related to usually having magic or not, or in the Qunari's case, having people that are not Qunari. They follow this like religion way of life called the Qun, and in that you are who you are. Like, you are a warrior. You do not change who you want to be or anything. Like, you are dictated to be a certain way. And this is like with a lot of different stuff. Again, like I said, you get into it a lot more in like Dragon Age Inquisition. And we basically open up with people who have been taken captive because the Qunari have taken over some town in Tevinter. And when I say town, it's probably bigger than that. Tevinter is an area that we haven't really explored too much, but I think we get to go to in Dragon Age Veilguard. And they've taken it over. They have gotten rid of all the mages, all the people with magic, because they do not like magic, and have other people being their slaves and like trying to chop down trees in the forest and things like that. And the 2 characters that we're really following are, one is an elf and one is a human, and they really don't like each other. There are some slurs for elves throughout the games in the series for people that don't like them. Elves are a very common race of people to be enslaved as well. So like there are definite tones that way. And basically they end up escaping and having these Qunari chase after them because they have escaped. And it is, like I said, almost like 50 pages of them trying to escape, and then like the Qunari catching up because they have this huntmaster guy that can track them. They do eventually escape and they're okay, and it turns out that the Huntmaster guy is actually part of the Ben Hasrath, which is a separate faction of Qunari who do not necessarily obey the Qun as intended, because it is very, very strict that way. And so it is like a completely different, like they are Qunari, but they're not Qunari. And that's sort of where we got. So, like, I do think the writing is really good. This one is a story by Patrick Weeks, who I think goes by Trick Weeks now. They are non-binary, and they have been part of the Dragon Age team since, I think, the first game, have done a lot of writing. They also write their own novels and things like that, but also, like, character stuff. Like, they are very heavily into the making of Dragon Age. I really do enjoy them when I know that some of the stuff is stuff that they've done. So in general, I think this story was a long story for like what it was, because we haven't really gotten anything else. Like, it doesn't feel like it's added anything to this story right now or to the progression of the games. Like, you know, like I'm reading this intending on that game being a thing. So I'm wanting to read it. The characters are not ones that I think we're ever going to see again. I mean, we'll see if anything comes up. But I think it's more just to show us that this sort of overtake of one of the towns in Tevinter has happened by the Kunari, because we didn't know that was a thing, I think, at the end of Inquisition. So that's where we're at. Okay, so we are at 10 o'clock tonight. I finished one more story. I really think I'm going to try and do one more. We're at that point where I'm like, I could go to bed or I could stay up a little bit. And so far I've done 2 stories, and we'll talk about the second one in just a second. That has taken me a little bit less than an hour total of like actual reading time. Yes, I use the Bookly app. That's how it tracks it. I do pause it in between if the kids are like fully like getting my attention, so I'm not using that as reading time. So it is usually right on like how long it takes me to finish something. So if I go in to the bedroom and the kids are asleep and actually like try to read, I should be able to read one more story in about half an hour, unless it's like super long compared to the things I just read. So the second story was Down Among the Dead Men by Sylvia Faketikuti. I am so sorry about that. I did not look that up. I think I'm gonna give this one like a 4.5, maybe a 5. I'm trying not to like try and remember what I gave it before, but I really liked this one, and I think I liked it more sort of knowing a little bit more about Dragon Age Veilguard, because we're actually introduced to the Morn Watch in this second story. Specifically, we're also introduced to Emmerich, who is going to be a companion in the game. He's not in the story very much, but him and his like skeleton friend Manfred is in this. And I don't know too much about them because, again, they're introduced in this second story, but they're not main characters or even really side characters. But it's something that I would never have known, because back when I read this in 2020, we didn't know anything about companions or anything like that. But so this is about a character named Audric, who is a guard like in the Chantry. The Chantry are a lot of their types of churches, specifically ones that are like the main religion for a lot of like the human races here in the world. And he's guarding a like funeral. The Morn Watch is somebody else that is like dealing with funerary type of stuff, dead bodies, their spirits, magic that goes with that basically. And so at the beginning of this story, the guy that is dead at the beginning of the story, he comes to life and like bites Audric. And so then what they're doing is trying to figure out where this dead body, who is potentially being possessed by like a pride demon, is going. They do figure out that like he is supposed to be like, I guess he died because of a duel, and him and the guy he was doing, they both died, but he is still having like, he got filled with his pride demon and he wants to go duel the guy again, sort of thing. But I really liked seeing the necropolis, which I don't know if we're gonna go to the necropolis or not. This is in Navarra, another type of country in Thedas, and they have like the night watches introduced, and like the fact that they do have this magic and are like protecting bodies and souls and spirits and things, and I liked the idea of it. I'm curious if we're gonna get more of the different factions in here, because part of the game is that you get to choose one of 6 or 7 factions. And the thing is, they're pretty much all new factions. Not all of them, because like we have the Grey Wardens, and like the Grey Wardens were the main thing that you played as in Dragon Age Origins, the first game. But there's a lot of new factions that I've never heard of before. And so we got the Night Watch in the second story, and I'm very, very curious if we're going to get more stuff. I did really like this story. I liked that we had different characters that I don't know if we're ever going to see again, but we were introduced to characters that we will see again. And again, this is going to be a spoiler-filled video. I don't think it's going to have anything to deal with the Veilguard, but one of the things that happened in the story that I really, really liked is that Audric actually finds out like 2/3 of the way through this story that he's actually dead as well. And I liked that they sort of didn't give us very many hints like at all through the beginning of the short story until that is revealed. And then it's like, oh yeah, I guess that sort of makes sense. And you see it a little bit, but apparently he is a dead body that has his own soul still in there. Like he's very much still magically tied to stuff, and he's gonna go be like an undead librarian, and I sort of love that for him. So yes, I'm gonna try and read one more tonight. The Horror of Hormak by John Epler. I think, how long is this one? Hopefully not too long. 30 pages? That should definitely be doable. I might have to come back and update you guys tomorrow morning. And that means I'm a little bit behind of what I wanted to do, because basically we have like 3-ish days if I want to get this done in time. So I was thinking 5 short stories and 2 graphic novels a day. Didn't quite hit that today, mostly because I had to edit a whole vlog, and that ended up taking up time, and then Elliot didn't have a nap. And so, yeah. You are in my spot. When I'm not home, or if I'm upstairs, you just like to be in my spot. Huh? He's purring, even though I'm berating him. Yeah. Okay, so we just got home from Costco. It is now Tuesday, and the first thing I'm gonna say is not actually related to this vlog at all. In the fact that like I was trying to listen to an audiobook in the car, and it's not related to this vlog because the book that I'm reading, the Tevinter Nights, the short stories, does not have an audiobook that I can get. I don't even know if it actually has one or not, but it's not through like my library at all. Like it's not popping up. So no audiobook. I finished my audiobook in the last vlog, so I was like, you know what? I need something. And my hold for How to Become a Dark Lord and Die Trying, I was gonna say or Die Trying, no, and Die Trying by Django Wexler came in. So I was like, okay, fine. Let's try this out. I listened on the drive to Costco, so like 18, almost 19 minutes. According to like how much percentage in, it was like 5%, maybe like 25 pages. I'm DNFing. I cannot. It's trying to be too humorous. Like it has this character named Dobby, even though she's a human from Earth, apparently. And she has been in this fantasy world, supposed to be the like savior of all the humans against wild creatures, like orcs and things, for years. And when I say years, like she apparently has been there for over 1,000 years. It's sort of like a Groundhog's Day type of like, when she dies, she shows back up at the same point of when she arrived in this fantasy world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, we've gotten a lot of telling and not showing because our narrator, it's in first person and she's very like, I'm going to tell you my story. Which not my favorite thing, because like we're dumped into this on like her 260 something life. And the one good thing is it does mention right at the beginning, before the prologue and stuff even starts, that there are many depictions of like suicide and things like that because of how her thing works and how that's a fantasy thing. Like, do not do it in real life. Like, there are helplines and hotlines and things. I appreciated that, but the humor is just really not hitting. In that 25 pages, I think she said fuck at least 30 times, which I say, Elliot is like literally right over here. Like, I'm not a mom that is going to be like, oh no, you can't curse. Like, no, but it's just very jarring, and it was trying to be humorous. It broke the fourth wall a million times. Like there's no fourth wall. It is very meta, trying to explain fantasy worlds, and like she's killed multiple people. Like she wants to be the Dark Lord, but like we don't exactly see why, because of the fact that like she's just telling us stuff that's happened, because the first time we meet her is in her like 260 something life after she's been in this fantasy world for thousands of years. It reminds me a little bit of like I Hate Fairyland. I did not like those either, like not my thing. Some people love those. So I do think this is something that will find its audience. It's just like, it was an obvious not my thing. So I'm glad I borrowed the audiobook from my library. And so yeah, that was an attempt at an audiobook that and it's not even like the audiobook narrator. She was great. It was just obviously not for me. So let's go back to what we were supposed to be talking about. This, Dragon Age Tevinter Nights. So last night I did read one more story after I had talked to you, which is called The Horror of Hormak by John Epler. I'm giving it 5 stars. I really, really like that one. I want to compare it to Bugsnax. If you know what that is, you will sort of know where I'm going with this. Again, spoilers, just be aware. It is very much horror. And it reminds me a little bit more of Dragon Age Origins, like where you really get into some really horrific ways that Darkspawn come to being. And it's very interesting that way. We were following 2 Grey Wardens, which is one of the factions from the first game especially. I think this guy in the armor is a Grey Warden. Just based on that armor, it definitely should be. And we're following these Grey Wardens as they're on this like mission to find other Grey Wardens that have gone missing. And they end up going deep into this like cave area. There's weird creatures. They constantly talk about a decaying and brine-like smell. I was expecting more sea monster-ish just because they kept mentioning brine. It doesn't come up that way, but like the unsettling vibes of it were perfect. I'm hoping we get a little bit more in that sort of vein in Dragon Age Veilguard, because as they're going deep into these caves, Darkspawn live underground. People that are dwarves and stuff are usually pretty close to it. So they'll talk about like dwarven tiges and dwarven roads and how going down deep will get you closer to Darkspawn, which is like, you know, corrupted creatures and things. But as they're going down and they go and see stuff, we actually find like weird elven ruins. And Dragon Age Veilguard is going to have to deal more with elven gods and things like that. And so I'm curious if that's going to pop up. I know they also mentioned in the story mutations of Darkspawn. And I don't think the mutations they're talking about are what's going to show up in Veilguard, because they were talking more of like Snake Hand and Scorpion Tail and, you know, Herlocks that don't look quite right. They have different body parts than they should. Whereas I know I've seen one of the interviews or something about Veilguard where they do talk about like the art direction for Darkspawn is obviously different in this game than other games. Every single game, the Darkspawn get a little bit updated. But they mentioned that part of the reason is one of the like bad gods in Veilguard has decided to like upgrade the Darkspawn a little bit. And I don't know if it's necessarily related in this story, but like that's sort of what I was feeling. And so near the end of the story, we do get one of the Grey Wardens that is left attached to a centipede-like creature, and he is not himself anymore, and things happen, and the other Grey Wardens have to like escape and like close the cave and things. So like it got very dark, very horrific. I think one thing that I also really like is Dragon Age is a queer normative world. We have trans characters, we have gay characters, lesbian characters, bi characters. All the companions that you can romance in the Veilguard are going to be, I guess, bi. I don't like to say player sexual necessarily. I know in Inquisition we actually had characters that were specifically gay or specifically straight or specifically bi or pan. So 2 out of the 3 stories now that we've had have mentions of LGBTQ characters. And so in this story, we had one of the main Grey Wardens that we were following. One of the guys that he was looking for is somebody he used to be with. They mentioned that like he potentially was in love with him, but they weren't able to be together at that time. Being Grey Warden is something very difficult for relationships sometimes in this world. And so he was hoping to have like one final chance to talk to him and things. And so I just really, really appreciate that we do have LGBTQ characters. It is queer normative. And I think that made the story, not that it was LGBTQ, but like the hints of a past romance that went wrong, and now, you know, the main character is like hoping beyond hope that everything is fine when we obviously know it's not. I really liked the tone of the story, and so yeah, that is where I ended last night. So I only read 3 out of 5 stories for last night. I'm supposed to read 5 more today. I'm on page like 106 of this book. Every story has been about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less, so hopefully I keep that pace up. And so if I continue, the 7th story, so the one I should be ending on today, goes until about page 322. So I have a little bit over 200 pages that I should read today. I'm gonna be doing my darndest to get this done. It is noon right now since we just came back from Costco, so hopefully we eat lunch, I get her to nap, maybe, and then she usually naps for like almost 2 hours before we have to go get Presley, so I should be able to get some of this stuff done while we're doing that. Also, my package finally came in. This is the one that I had mentioned has my 2 other Dragon Age comics that I needed, and it was supposed to be in end of last week. Although when I first ordered it, it actually did say it might not be in until like right before Halloween. And I was like just hoping that they were gonna come in. If not, I had the library editions so that I could read those as well. And so yes, we have Dragon Age, Dark Fortress. This is the last one in the 5 books by Nunzio DeFilipis, which are all set in between Inquisition and Veilguard, but I don't know how closely they will be pulled up into the game. And then we also have The Missing, which is George Man. And this one is going to be the thing that is like directly going into the Veilguard, with Varric and Harding and stuff. And so I definitely need to read this last even. So I think the goal, like I said, it's lunchtime. We'll have lunch. We'll see if we can get Elliot to nap. And then I'm going to focus on short stories, obviously, letting you guys know about them as we go, anything that seems like it might be interesting for Veilguard stuff. And I think I'm going to start reading some of the comics as well. Get maybe like half of them done today because of the fact that we'll need to read more tomorrow as well. But those should be very, very quick. So I'll just maybe pick those up in between needing a break of short storyness. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. So yeah, lunchtime. So Elliot has just gone down for a nap. It's 1:30. I'm gonna shirk all of my other responsibilities to read this pile of Dragon Age things. We're gonna start with the short stories like we mentioned before. But one other thing that I forgot to mention a little bit earlier is, for some reason, I think it's perfect timing. I think they did this on purpose, obviously. But I received an email from Humble Bundle saying that Mass Effect and Dragon Age comics are currently part of a bundle. So this is something that I've done before, and I'm not going to do it this time because I own all of them in hardcover or paperback, you know, an actual comic versus an ebook, which is what they're doing. But they're bundles for charity, and so I've done things for comics and manga and things in the past. And basically, they have for the next 12 days as of today, Tuesday. So they're doing it because the game's coming out, I'm assuming. But the people that publish these comics have like all of the Dragon Age and all of the Mass Effect comics currently available as a bundle. I think there's 18 volumes for $18 right now. I'll leave everything here, but I'll also leave the link down below in case you are curious to get these, but it's all the comics. And Hard in Hightown, which is not a comic actually. I have the book as well, but it's a very, very like short novella type of thing that Varric wrote in Dragon Age 2, pretty sure. So yeah, I'm gonna read, but also Dragon Age and Mass Effect, things are on sale, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so I just finished the next story in here called Callback by Lucas Christiansen. I think I'm gonna give it like a 4. Like, it was good. I was hoping for a little bit more in the fact of like going from Inquisition to Veilguard. However, if you played Inquisition, it was basically like a band of characters. There's only a few of them, but like going back to Skyhold, and they are some of the ones that are the smaller characters that help out while you're there. And they are going because something is wrong at Skyhold. There's nobody really there anymore except for like a caretaker. But something is going wrong, and so they go to find out what's happening, and there is a demon of regret there. One thing I do like about the Dragon Age world and lore is that a lot of the demons are based on emotions and things like that. Like, we have pride demons and desire demons and sloth demons and those kind of things. And so this was a demon of regret. And so I liked a lot of how they talked about regret or not having regret based on characters from Skyhold. But that was sort of it. Like, I don't feel like we got anything extra. So again, writing was good. I thought it was a very interesting concept. I really do like when they bring in those kind of like demon emotion things, but it felt like a longer story than some of the other ones I've read. And it didn't feel like it gave me anything new. So good, but not exactly what I'm wanting right now when I'm like really, really anticipating the game. So yeah, we're gonna continue. Okay, another story done. So this was called Luck in the Gardens by Sylvia Fakatakuri. So this was actually her second story. Some of the authors in this collection do have up to 2 stories each. I think this is maybe like more like a 4.5. We do have some very interesting things here. It talks about the Lords of Fortune, which is another faction that is going to be in Dragon Age Veilguard. It seems like they're treasure hunters / some sort of like thieves in general. This is the first story that we've had that has a first person point of view. Everything else has been like third person. And it had like slightly small interjections of like this person telling a story, like, hey, when's the next round gonna be? Or yeah, like, I'll get to that part, you know, like different things. So they were basically telling a story of when they went to Minrathous, which is in the Tevinter Imperium, and we're basically going like on a monster hunt. The monster again is very weird and grotesque and disgusting and like very horror filled and reminiscent of like original Dragon Age type of stuff, which I do like. I like that they have some very weird horror monster things. I'm hoping we get more in the game, although this one eventually died. They did figure it out. But this character does appear to be non-binary or gender fluid. They're like, I'm a guy sometimes, I'm a girl sometimes, it just depends on how I'm dressed. Like, they're very art of disguise type of stuff, which was very intriguing as well. And we got to meet Dorian again, who is a character from Inquisition, a companion in Inquisition, which I love him as a person. And so I thought that was very fun here. But besides going on a monster hunt and learning a little bit about the Lords of Fortune, we didn't really get much else. It didn't really feel like there was more going on. We had like 1 or 2 throwaway lines about some political stuff in Minrathous. Yeah, this one I think was a little bit quicker to read than the one that I had just read previous to this. So again, let's continue. Okay, so we've gotten 1 more story in. I am now officially to page 200, so almost halfway. I think we're gonna get at least halfway through this book today. But so the story that I just read was Hunger by Brienne Batty. And this was again about Grey Wardens. which is not a bad thing. We haven't really had too many Grey Warden things since the first game. Like, Game 2 didn't really have anything at all. Game 3 did have a character who was a Grey Warden, and this next one will have a companion who's a Grey Warden as well. We didn't have any of the companions, but basically they're making their way to Weishaupt, which is like a Grey Warden stronghold, which I think, again, I could be wrong because I don't know everything. I think we get to visit it in Dragon Age Veilguard. I think there was something that I saw about that, which will be very intriguing because we've never gotten to go there. And they get sort of sidetracked because this woman sort of runs into the forest fleeing some sort of monster from her village. Her village is cursed, all this kind of stuff. It ends up being werewolves, which we did have werewolves in Dragon Age Origins as well, and we haven't seen them in a while. Werewolves come into being in this world as a curse, obviously, but from some either cursed wolf or cursed human, usually dealing with demons, and this one was a demon of hunger. That's why the title of it was called Hunger. We get a little bit more knowledge about the Grey Wardens if you've never known them before. Obviously, if you played Dragon Age Origins, you played as a Grey Warden, so you got to know how they came into being, how they deal with Darkspawn, the fact that you have to go through a joining ritual, which sort of like enmeshes you with Darkspawn a little bit, like you can sort of sense them. So you know that like the werewolf was not a Darkspawn. They mentioned that they weren't able to sense that. But one of the characters, there's two of them that we're following. One of them is an elf who, when the Darkspawn attacked at one point, probably back during the first game, I mean, maybe after, who knows, he was sort of left for dead, and so the only way that he was able to survive was to become a Grey Warden. And then there is a dwarf companion that he is with, and they seem to have a little flirtation thing going on, but like not 100%, just like little hints. But again, I don't even know if we're going to see them ever again. So yeah, and it seems like they, you know, saved the day, defeated the werewolf, but the last little tiny paragraph here mentions the, like, they're small, banished, powerless, but if it waited, it could sense the knot that twisted its victim. Like, it seems like Hunger, the demon that they defeated for the werewolf thing, might be coming back. And, like, we know all these demons and stuff in the Dragon Age world are based on emotions and things like that, which I really love. So yeah, not my favorite story, but again, probably at least a good solid 4. Okay, I had to stop really quick because we have a cute little cameo of a Varric Tethros book in here. It's not Hard in Hightown, at least not that cover, but like, I just had to say, I really like when they put that kind of stuff in there. So this is following mage killers. So far, they have killed one mage, which I actually think is the mage on the cover already, actually. Yeah, almost exactly this. And I think I mentioned earlier that all of these comics are done by Nunzio DeFilipis. This one's actually Greg Rutka, who I think I've heard of before in other Dragon Age book type things. So we're going to continue. Okay, so Presley is now home from school. The kids are over here playing with Play-Doh. There he is. Say hi. But I did want to just come and mention, I finished this right before I had to go pick him up. I don't think we necessarily needed to read this one before Veilguard, because it's mostly set during Inquisition. It was still fun to go back and revisit it, and actually there is a small group of Inquisition people that are actually in the story callback. So like that was sort of fun to see. But it just follows two characters who are mage killers. And at the beginning, they get hired to kill some Venatori mages. I still don't know 100% if they were Venatori mages, because in general, the faction of Tevinter mages that the Venatori broke off from, everybody's a little bit gray in their like alignment. Venatori is obviously bad, but like even the people that are good aren't really good. So they kill 3 out of 4 of these Venatori mages that they were supposed to kill. And the 4th one ends up being somebody that the guy Magekiller, Marius, knew previously when he used to be a Tevinter slave, because we talked about it, slavery earlier, is a thing in this world, mostly if you have magic or don't. So they ended up skipping out of that job, running away. People were coming after them, but they get hired basically by the Inquisition. They find them, they take them in, and then they start doing stuff for the Inquisition, and it basically ends up being, what'd you make?
A piece of Egypt.
A piece of Egypt. They end up basically helping fight the demons and things that come through the portals that were part of like the veil breaking in Inquisition. And the end of this is basically a fight off scene from like who you would be in Inquisition, helping with like the big last battle. That's it. Like it's just like an extra bit. So like ultimately probably like a 3, maybe a 3.5, not needed for this vlog or for Veilguard. As far as I am aware, we got no new information. It was set during Inquisition. So yeah, again, it is LGBTQ friendly. We do have our trans character who was in Inquisition here in this as well. Dorian shows up, who is one of the gay characters. Also, the female Magekiller is sapphic and has a like small romance in here. It's not like romantic, but like, you know, she gets into a relationship. And so that's where we're at here. Now that Presley's home, I think we're gonna hang out downstairs, but I did bring my books. I think I'm gonna continue with some more short stories because I think I still have 4 left. Yeah, I have 4 left if I want to catch up to where I should be for today. And like, I don't want to have to worry about it tomorrow. So I probably do need to do that. And then I do have a couple more of the graphic novel things that I want to do. Seems like it's set in Kirkwall after Dragon Age 2 at least. We'll see about everything else. So yeah. Good morning and happy Wednesday. I am wearing my Grey Warden outfit because this is technically loungewear that I wear out of the house because why not? It has these sweatpants. I love them. Hello. Did you want to see yourself too? Someone got chocolate face this morning. I'll wipe you before school. It's okay. He's playing with Play-Doh now. He had sort of like a Nutella on toast bread. He doesn't like toast. Bread this morning. We are now going to be playing chicken with this book to see what is going to finish first. The day or the book. I read 2 more stories last night. I had a little bit of a headache around dinner time, which I've noticed almost every single day since I had the flu and COVID vaccine. Not bad, just like I get tired. What, baby? Yeah, a little bit of headache, a little bit more tired. Like I did stay up till 11 reading and stuff yesterday, but like I've just noticed it a little bit more. But besides that, we're good. So I read 2 more stories in here. I also read 1 more of the comic collections. We'll probably talk about that one later because it's upstairs and it's gonna be time to get Presley ready for school soon. But I brought this down. And so the first one that we needed to talk about is Murder by Death Mages by Caitlin Sullivan Kelly. I wanna say not necessarily my favorite. It's more of a like mystery whodunit. She's investigating her basically like an adoptive father, uncle sort of figure who was one of the Mortalitazi, who we've talked about earlier. It's one of the Death Watch. And I'm very intrigued by them because we've now had 2 stories that are sort of revolved around them. Although this one was more of a like, there's supposed to be a Mortalitazi who wants to assassinate other Mortalitazi, and there's, you know, we don't really know the reason. We just know that they're dying. We don't really know much else, and she's trying to figure it out. I thought it ended in a semi-anticlimactic way. Like it just took forever to get to the like, this is who it was, and it was supposed to be like a surprise. It was the person you were working with all along. But during the course of everything that happened, we never really had more action, and so it was very slow going. It also could have been my headache a little bit. But like, I think it's interesting that we're getting more about the Mortalitazi, and we know that we're gonna get Deathwatch as one of the factions in Dragon Age Veilguard, but I was hoping for a little bit more from that one. And then the one that I read after that, hello. Do you want to show the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, right here. Play-Doh creation. She's mixing everything together lately. Yeah? Okay, go play with your Play-Doh. Yeah.
Baby. Ball.
Oh, it needs to be a big ball.
No. Ball.
Well, this is gonna be a big ball because you have a lot of Play-Doh. Here you go.
Oh. You.
Yeah. Okay, go back to the table and play for a little bit. So the second story that we need to talk about is The Streets of Minrathous by Brienne Batty. This is Brienne Batty's second story in the collection, and I thought this one was slightly better. It again felt very mystery, whodunit type of things, because in this one there was a like murder right in front of her. She was following this kid, young adult, who is a mage, was potentially part of the Venatori. His uncle was having him followed, and his uncle was actually mentioned in a like very small mention in an earlier story, so I just thought that was fun. But she was following him to figure out like, was he going back to the Venatori? The Venatori, I think I mentioned before, are one of the like bad factions from Dragon Age Inquisition, and they seem very much still a part of this set of stories, so I'm thinking
Evie.
yeah, EU. Probably gonna be dealing with them a little bit, at least in the next game as well. So she was following this kid. He ends up murdered, and something was like a necklace taken off. And then she finds out that there's like multiple things of this. One cool thing about this is actually the character that we're following. It starts off in a first-person point of view, and we don't know who we're following for a little while. Is Neve, who is another companion that we're gonna follow and have in Veilguard. So I thought that was really fun to see her. She actually has a prosthetic leg on one of her legs, like below the knee, which again, cool addition. And she is some sort of detective sort of thing. I can't remember.
Evie.
Yay, good job. I can't remember what her faction is supposed to be in Veilguard. I might have to look that up later. My phone, I'm filming on my phone, so I can't use that right now. So we're following her. She is gonna be one of the companions, and she is some sort of like detective-ish thing. I'm pretty sure they mentioned that. She's also a mage, and so we're following her, and she's like trying to investigate these multiple cases, trying to get the Templars involved in it. Templars are usually like not exactly mage hunters, and especially not in Tevinter. They don't really have the same powers as like the rest of like in Ferelden and stuff like that. But it ends up being another Venatori wanted to try and raise Corypheus, or something that was dealing with Corypheus, who was like the really, really big bad guy from Inquisition. And so in order to do that, she was stealing these necklaces of people that were, I guess, apparently trusted to wake it up if needed, and blood magic, you know, bad things. So again, the story wasn't necessarily my story. I would have wanted a little bit more. I don't know. The horror stories in here have really been doing it for me. I think Dragon Age has some very weird, creepy horror stuff that I do love. So the fact that it was more just almost political, not quite political, murder mystery, figuring out who done it type of thing. Both of those stories actually more political who done it. Not as much my thing. I liked this one slightly better than the first one that I just talked about. And I think it was because we got Neve, we got to know her a little bit better. She is sort of like I'm gonna figure this out whether people follow me or not, just because it needs to, like, I need to follow it through. I was following this guy, he got killed, I need to figure it out. It also does turn out that this kid was no longer part of the bad guys. Like, he joined it for like a little bit of time, realized it was bad, and got out. But then, you know, he died anyway, so he didn't even get to like have a good life. But I guess his uncle can feel a little bit better about that. I don't know. So ultimately, that's where we ended. You can show what's on that.
Libya.
Libya. Very nice. So ultimately that means
Ball.
we have 7 stories left in here because I did not catch up yesterday. I did, I think 5. Like I'm still as far behind as I would have been. Thank you. So I'm gonna be trying and attempting my best. I also have only read 2 of the comic collections out of 6. So also behind on that, but I was hoping to get this done today and apparently edit because Thursday is the day I usually post things and that's the day Dragon Age Veilguard comes out. So I have like 3.5 hours left in here according to Bookly plus the comics. We're gonna try our best. We'll see. Algeria, show the camera. Okay, very nice. This is what he's doing before school, making countries and their flags sort of on the countries out of Play-Doh. Very nice. Okay, it's gonna be time to get his lunch packed and everything and get ready. So, good job. Yeah. Okay, so I have finished another story called The Wig Maker Job by Courtney Woods. I'm pretty sure Courtney Woods, this is her second one in this story collection. I loved this one. This one specifically follows Lucanus, who is an Antivan Crow, which is a guild of assassins from Antiva, so not in Tevinter, but he obviously is in Tevinter. He's going to be a companion in the game, and he was like the main character in this story. So far, he's one of the characters we know the most about. Neve we had some time with earlier, and then like I said, Emmerich was somebody that we saw, but he was like barely in the story. It was just like a little bit. So I'm loving the fact that he was the main character here. And this story was him pulling off an assassination. His cousin is there with him and they had some really good banter back and forth. I don't know if his cousin's going to be in the game. So I don't know how witty he's going to be by himself, but like the dialogue and stuff in here was really, really good. And he's basically called, I think, the Magekiller in the promotions for Dragon Age Veilguard, and it's because he is an assassin who's going around killing Venatori mages. And so those are the, the bad guys from Tevinter. And the one that he's after in this story is a wig maker, which makes sense, the wig maker job. And we find out throughout this that it's like very dark. He's not just a wig maker. He uses dark magic. Red lyrium, which I mentioned earlier, one of the journals, I think, talked about red lyrium, and red lyrium was a thing that we discovered in Inquisition. I guess we sort of knew about it a little bit in Dragon Age 2, but like we didn't know what it was. We know about it in Inquisition. It seems like it might still be partly a problem going into Veilguard because we had it here. And yeah, he pulled off his assassination job by freeing the slaves. I mentioned at the very beginning of this vlog, the first story definitely talks about slaves, and slaves are more of a thing in Tevinter than like anywhere else. Like it's not necessarily a good thing anywhere, obviously, but like in Tevinter, because of how corrupt the mages and government and things are, they do have slaves, and it's not a good thing. So he frees all the slaves. I really like him as a character. And then because he is like very much upset that the way the wig maker is using the slaves is to use red lyrium and dark magic on them, he cuts down the veil a little bit because there is something holding the veil up and lets in a bunch of demons, and the demons kill the wig maker and stuff. So I really thought this was a well done story. I really liked getting to know the character. One of the characters, like another character in here near the end that's not really in the story, but like they mention her. I guess she's pretty high up in the Tevinter Magister stuff. She mentions that this is an assassin with a heart, and I am really liking that. I'm curious to see how he's going to come into the Veilguard and like how he'll be as a companion, but like so far I'm a fan. Another story down. This is where we should have ended yesterday. So I still have 5 stories to go, but I just finished Genetivi Dies in the End by Lucas Christiansen. Hopefully saying it close to correct. This is his second story in here as well. I thought it was interesting, but it was another one of those ones where they have like interjections of people telling the story, because the three like main characters in this story are writers. So we have Genetivi, who is in Dragon Age Origins, and he is like a scholar. We have Philium, who is more of a like action writer, I guess we'll say. And then we also have the former sister Laudine, and that's how they refer to her. So she used to be sort of like a nun at the church, and she's not anymore. And she is also a writer, but she does more sensuous stuff. So I'm assuming romances and maybe erotica, who knows? But they are supposed to be going on this journey to find what happened to the elves and stuff. And this is like going back into the past, from starting at like Inquisition and the Dreadwolf, and knowing stuff about that, and like going to see what happened, because we find out at the end of Inquisition that the Fade was not something that was originally there. There's like a veil between the Fade and our world. And back in ancient elven times, there were elven gods that ruled, and there was nothing to separate them from our world. Everything was just there. The thing about this story is, we didn't really get to know much. Like, they were supposed to go on this journey, but they end up getting intercepted by a Kunari and her stuff, people, and they get captured, and then the story is sensationalized, and has two of the three of them die and the other one not, and but get injured and things like that. And then we find out at the end that it's actually all three of them writing this story. Apparently they found some information and were giving it to the what's left of the Inquisition, because this is after Inquisition. The Inquisition is supposed to be disbanded. But so like we didn't get enough. This was one of the shorter stories so far, like 20-ish pages versus like 30. A lot of them have been about 30 or so. So like, it wasn't bad. I liked the fact that it was called Genetivi Dies in the end, and like they make them die in the story, but then like not really. Although it sounds like they might change their names, so they're not as easily found. So we'll see. But like I was hoping for more information, I guess, and we didn't really get more information. So fun, but like not what I wanted for now when we're going to be going into the game. So now I'm going to pause. I'm going to have some lunch and get this girl to have a nap, because it's just about that time. It's 12:40. I went a little bit past when we should have gone upstairs. But we're going to do that so that I can then finish more. I'm very happy with, like, look at this. I'm like, what, almost 2/3 of the way done now. I have less than 200 pages left in this like 500 page book, a little less than 500 pages. And yeah, we're getting through it. I do still need to read some more comics and tell you guys about the one from yesterday, but let's get this girl napping first. Okay, Elliot is finally down for a nap, and I wanted to just come in here because this is where I'm going to read, but also let you know about Knight Errant. So this is the comic collection that I read yesterday. It is set following Inquisition, and Varric is the Viscount of Kirkwall, and he invites this like knight guy, somebody who used to be very important, getting a little older, to like come to his city, and then eventually they go to like a different area for a party, because she is an elf and she is the knight errant of this knight. I can't remember. Aaron Hawthorne. And she's also a thief. So it turns out at the end of this that actually Sir Hawthorne knows that she is, and he doesn't care because she is sort of like a Robin Hood-esque type character, steals from the rich, gives to the elves and the poor and the alienages and all this kind of stuff. But they end up going to rescue the characters, the Magekillers from the first volume, actually, at this like party. There's also a journal with red lyrium type of stuff. And as I've mentioned before, we have had hints about red lyrium. So this journal that she is also there for, this is like why the other characters were captured, was something that I guess has information about red lyrium or studying red lyrium, something like that. And so that makes me feel like we are still going to have red lyrium types of stuff in Veilguard, hopefully, because this is after Inquisition. This is definitely set after Inquisition. And those things keep popping up. Like, we just had another story, the Wigmaker one, with red lyrium. So, like, I feel like that's going to be a thing. This was good. I think I should have mentioned, I think this is a reread for me, and so was Magekiller. Magekiller I originally gave a 5-star. I don't know if I necessarily think it's a 5-star. I do like this one better than Magekiller. However, I also think part of it is I'm trying to read these in anticipation of Veilguard, and so when I first read these, it was just, ooh, yay, Dragon Age things. It wasn't necessarily trying to see if we get any hints of, like, what the next game is going to be. I know one of the backs of these books, because they continue now with, like, hardcovers, does mention this is a canonical continuation of the Dragon Age Inquisition stuff. So, like, these are canon, according to the books and things. And, like, the people that write them, I think, are part of the Dragon Age stuff. So, yeah, I liked this one. I liked that she was able to do her job and be a thief, and a good thief, and Varric was very supportive, and I love Varric as a character. I liked that we had characters from Magekiller come into Knight Errant. So, yeah, that was that one. Now, I have about an hour and a half until I need to go pick up Presley from school. We still have, 5 stories in Tevinter Nights, and 4 more comic collections. I think I might read another comic collection now, get that over with, because it's quicker, and then read a couple more stories until we need to, like, go get Presley. So the next comic collection was Dragon Age Deception. In this one, we follow Olivia, who is sort of an actress, con artist type of thing, and she actually used to sleep with Sir Errant Hawthorne. So we actually are getting characters from Knight Errant, the elf thief Knight Errant, Vea, and Sir Errant Hawthorne in this as well. And they are paired with Dorian, who is a character from Inquisition, trying to break into a magister's house who is potentially with the Venatori, and is potentially also having, like, red lyrium stuff. So we are definitely following more of a, like, direct storyline with these comics, which means I might be bad and try and finish the last 2 in this, like, series first before I continue any more short stories, just because it does seem to, like, be following a main storyline now. I didn't really feel like we had any sort of major connection between Magekiller and Knight Errant, except for, like, they saved the characters from Magekiller. Like, Magekiller was set during Inquisition. These are 100% set after Inquisition, and so I'm hoping, because Dark Fortress just came out, like, last year, maybe we actually are getting to a point where, like, something in these will show up in Veilguard, which is part of the reason, like, I'm reading them, even though it doesn't 100% feel like it. So we end up having Olivia and this guy that's another sort of, like, novice con artist named Calix, and Vea and Sir Errant Hawthorne, and they are all trying to get into this place. They work together. They do get into this place and find out that the magister who's supposed to be holed up in the manor died years ago, and an elf who was his servant, I'm pretty sure they said servant instead of slave, his, like, butler almost, was pretending to be him, and there's no red lyrium. They traded it to somebody else previously in Tevinter, so we are, like, in Tevinter doing stuff. There is some sort of red lyrium weapon. Like, I really do want to know where we're going with this. I've read the next volume after this before, but I don't, like, 100% remember, and then I never finished it because Dark Fortress recently came out. So yeah, Olivia died at the end of this. She sacrificed herself. So just be aware of that. Like, I really did like this one. It started off a little slow because, oh, we're just a con artist. It's a completely new character that we hadn't met before. But I really liked the vibes of it. And, like, it was a little bit emotional near the end because of, we get to know her throughout this volume, and then she does end up sacrificing herself, at the end of Kunari Blades and stuff to let everybody else escape. And now I think they're going to continue their journey. So, like I said, I think we're going to continue on with Blue Wraith. This is Fenris here. I know that they get to meet up with Fenris. He's from Dragon Age 2, another fan favorite character. And so yeah, let's continue. Okay, so Presley is home from school now. It is so like cloudy and dark outside. It's supposed to rain. It sort of did a little bit before I picked him up, and then it sort of tapered off, but I think it's supposed to rain more, so we shall see. But I don't have the books with me. I'll put pictures up, I guess. More editing for me. I wanted to talk about the comics that I was reading. So I think I left off with 2 more to be read in that 5-book series, and I finished them during Elliot's nap. She ended up on me, so that's why I didn't update as I was reading, because of the fact that then I would have had to talk and potentially wake her up, and I want her to sleep until it was time to go get Presley. So the next one that we had read was Dragon Age Blue Wraith, which has Fenris in it, and this now also has Sir Errant and Vaya and the 2 mage killers, which are Tessa and Marius. We have him a little bit more than Tessa. She's just sort of there, but like we do have them with us as well. And we have Calix, pretty sure that's his name, who was like the guy that was Olivia's other novice Karn artist. And then we also have Francesca, who is a mage that Calix was trying to con at the beginning of the last book, and she ends up sort of coming with them because I don't think I mentioned, but maybe I did, I don't remember anymore. The city that they were in, the Kunari came in at the end and like took over war and things like that. So she basically escaped with them. She's a little bit upset at them in Blue Wraith, eventually comes to like be part of their party. But Blue Wraith, I like it because it has Fenris. Fenris is a character from Dragon Age 2. However, it is more of a travel, trying to catch up with the bad guys. We get a little bit of information about this red lyrium thing that they're going after. It's some sort of weapon. It also has a like sarcophagus type of thing that is related to Fenris's backstory. Gave him his like powers and things like that. But besides that, it's more just them trying to go find Francesca's dad, who is part of the Venatori and potentially part of this whole weapon thing, and trying to catch up to these people. We get a little bit of like character stuff, and there is some battles, there is more Kunari, but besides that, it's just sort of like a travel type of story, which means it was good, but it wasn't like my favorite. So that's what it is. Calix leaves at the end because he's like, I'm a con artist. I am not somebody that is into fighting. So he moves on. And then Dark Fortress was the next one and the end of this thing. So basically we catch up to the sarcophagus stuff going to the Dark Fortress. We get a little bit more information about that, about the people who are trying to create like sort of like the next Fenris with powers, but at the same time be their weapon. It's red lyrium, so it's not the same as like the normal lyrium. They have a dragon. So again, it was okay. I was hoping for a little bit more, and a little bit more of a finality. Like they did finish everything. They did stop the bad guys at the expense of Sir Errant, who did pass away at the end of the book because he wanted to save everybody, and like he did it in a very heroic way. They do mention and they give a little bit of backstory about him in, I think, Dark Fortress, about how he is older and he survived like Ostergar and like different battles that we saw in Dragon Age Origins and things like that. So like it was a fitting end for him, even though it was sad that way. Everybody else is fine. Everybody else seems to be part of this group that is going to be continuing on. There were, again, Kunari who came in and were fighting people. It seems like based on how many times they showed up in the comic series versus like the short stories so far, they have been going through and taking over parts of Tevinter. I don't know how much that's going to show up in the game, but it would be a very interesting dynamic, especially since I think the Dragon Age people teased how there's like 1 day left today, like, oh, it's coming out tomorrow, and they said you can start your journey in Minrathous, which is one of the cities in Tevinter, one of the places that we've seen in the short stories. So I do think we might get some more about Red Lyrium and Kunari and stuff like that in there. And then at the end of Dark Fortress, there was one page that showed Solus watching all of the events happen through an Illuvian, which is like the mirror stuff. So that seems to be the main way that that comic series ties into Solus and the Dreadwolf and going into the Veilguard game. So I will be curious to see if we see any of these characters. They're not companions. None of these characters were companions, but like maybe they'll show up for, I don't know, a quest or something. I would be very, very curious about that. So that's where we're at. I've finished the comics except for the missing. That's the last thing I'm going to read. So I still technically, I think, have 5 short stories that I'm supposed to be reading and finishing. It's 4:30. So I need to get on that. I'm not cooking tonight, which is good. Leona's cooking tonight. So let me see if I can get at least 3, 4 stories done by dinner time, or, you know, close to dinner time, because I also want to edit this vlog. So far, I'm proceeding in everything, but I am not so far winning Dragon Age Chicken. Yeah. Okay, another story down. We're getting there. So this one was Herald Had the Plan by Ryan Cormier. And so basically, we are following Barv and Elam, who are Lords of Fortune. So we're doing Lords of Fortune again. We got a lot more information about that faction than a lot of other ones. And they have been tasked with like stealing an amulet from a tournament area. And we come to see them as they are running away because somehow, some way, people are after them because they stole the amulet. We come to find out that one of their lackeys that they sort of hired to do this, Panazot, probably saying that incorrectly, actually stole a giant sword from the champion tournament thing. And it's because it's like, that's the sword you get when you win until the next time. So actually, they did their part right. The Lords of Fortune steal treasures and things like that. But the other guy that was with them did not. And so all these guards are coming after them and things like that. And he stole the sword for, I guess, the widow of the previous person who had won the championship. And he died somehow. I can't remember if they said he was murdered or if it was like a hint of murder or whatever it was. Like, they never really explained what happened. Some people were saying it was nothing crazy, like it was just normal stuff, and other people were saying that it was deceptive, like who knows. So we end up with this like big battle between the people that want the sword back and the guy that has the sword, and them who are being like, we didn't even want the sword, we just wanted this other thing. And it does end up where the guy that stole the sword dies. I think some of the other champion people die. They take the sword, they take the widow. Barv and Elam are both like wounded horrendously. But the amulet has healing magic. So after a long while, Barv wakes up completely healed. It was too late for Elam though. And so he ends up having to go find the person this amulet was supposed to go to. Oh, I think I forgot to mention, the story's called Herald Has the Plan, or Had the Plan. Herald died before the story even began, way back when the alarm was like first sounded. But Barv, ends up going back to where he's pretty sure he's supposed to meet the person who wants the amulet. And it ends up being Vaya, who is the knight-errant thief person from the comics, which I thought was very intriguing because I was not expecting to see her. So again, I'm curious to see who is going to show up in Dragon Age Veilguard, because obviously not all these people are companions. I'm mentioning the companions as we get there, and we have only seen a couple of them really. But we're having a lot of crossover with like Vaya and those kind of things with the comics and here. And so I'm curious. I'm very, very curious. So yeah, that was the next story done. Let's continue. Okay, so we finished another story. It was called An Old Crow's Old Tricks by Aaron Lebray. And this one was really fun because, again, we get to see the Antivan crows. But it's like specifically an old woman who got hired, because they're assassins, to take out the, I think they're Tevinters again, because, of course, that's part of the bad people, who had like come over and taken over a Dalish Elves clan area, and so they killed people because they wanted to have a base there. And just sort of like the creativity of this old woman, of how it happens, but also the fact that she's supposed to be like, her other guy that's with her is like 76, so I'm assuming she's probably in the same age range. They mention like liver spots and things multiple times. And I just think that is fun, even though, yeah, death and blood and gore and stuff. But I really liked that one. I don't think there was anything else in it necessarily. Just, you know, Antivan Crows being one of the factions and things. And that was just a fun story, so. Okay, so I finished one more story. This was the longest one yet, which is called 8 Little Talons by Courtney Woods. I think this is Courtney's second story in here as well. I really, really like this one. This is more of like, feels like Agatha Christie murder mystery type of stuff, but the Talons are like really, really high in the Antivan Crow stuff. So like they're each in charge of like different factions in there. So 8 of the heads, and I think there's only 8 total, go to this like island. Sort of supposed to be like a meeting place, no weapons, no guards, no extra stuff, neutral ground is what I'm trying to say. Because they know that Kunari have taken over some of the lands in Tevinter, which we've obviously talked about, and Antiva is, I guess, close enough to Tevinter that they're worried that the Kunari will then try to take over them. Antiva doesn't have an army, so they have the assassins, they have the crows. But while they're here to discuss stuff, the crows, the Talons, they start getting murdered one by one. And so it is very much like a murder mystery. I don't think the reveal of who did what is going to help you guys any, because I think you really need to experience it here. But it's basically, that's what it is. It's like an Agatha Christie murder mystery type of thing. There's 8 little Talons, which is what it is here. And basically we end the story with only having like 4 left, I want to say. So like, yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. I like that they've mentioned some stuff, like the Crows is one of the factions we're going to get. I liked the characters, even though none of them are ones that we know we're going to see in the game. But I like the dynamic. I liked the murder mystery aspect. So yeah, here's what we're looking like right now. This top part is what we have left. We do have 2 stories left. So I have a feeling it's going to take me about another hour total. It's going to be bath time for the kids soon. So I don't think I'm going to be able to edit this video tonight and have it up on Dragon Age Day like I thought I was going to. But my goal is still to finish these 2 stories and the comic The Missing tonight. And like I said, it's going to be bath time and hopefully bedtime for them soon. So as long as they go to bed on time, I should be able to finish this. I should definitely be able to finish this. And like I've said before, we've gotten some information about the different factions, some information about the different companions, but not all of them. So I am curious how much we're going to learn or not. Good morning and happy Dragon Age Day. So I flew a little bit too close to the sun. I'm obviously not going to get this vlog up on Thursday because it's Thursday right now and I need to tell you guys about stuff. So I did finish this book last night. So there was 2 more stories that I needed to read. The first one was called Half Up Front by John Epler. This is John's second story in the collection. And this is following people who are like thieves for hire. And they're hired by an elf to track down Dumat's Folly, which I think is like something related to Tevinter and the Fade and things like that. I've heard it mentioned before, but like I don't 100% know. And they said that like the thing got stolen and not everybody knows about it. So it's this human thief and her elf partner. Like they're together, they live together, romantic, all that kind of stuff. But she used to be a mage. Well, I mean, she is still a mage, but she sort of got like disowned by her family because she wanted to date the elf who used to be like an employee of them, but isn't any longer. So long story, but they are going to go find this. They go to like the church area sort of thing that this Dumat's Folly used to be in. It's obviously not there anymore. But they find some like tracks using magic and other things of like, oh, okay, it used to go down this way. We went down this tunnel. Obviously it's a little bit action-packed. People are trying to chase them. And they eventually go to this Kunari town in Ravane, which is a different country. And when I say Kunari town, it's like a town of different races who have converted to using the Kun. So they're still considered Kunari, even though like it's a bunch of like elves and things. And they track Dumat's Folly. I don't think it's an idol. I was going to say idol, but they track it to a ship. And then when they're there, it turns out the idol is actually fake. It's going to be more of like a bomb. And the elf that had hired them is part of the Dreadwolf supporters, which is like a thing, obviously. But we haven't gotten too many things about that in here. They end up saving the day, saving the Kunari elves and things like that. And so even though they're from Tevinter and Tevinter hates Kunari and vice versa and things, it ended well. So like nothing, I don't think it necessarily gave us anything extra in this, but I did like the writing. I liked the action. I thought it was a nice story. Maybe not my favorite, but like it was nice to read. And then the last one that we have here is called The Dreadwolf Takes You by Patrick Weeks. So again, Patrick's second story in here. I'm actually wearing my Dragon Age Dreadwolf shirt. It actually on the back does say, May the Dreadwolf Take You. I really like this one. This is one that is like directly related to Dreadwolf and Soulless and things. And so basically we have an elf named Charter who actually does show up in the comics that we read previously as well. Having a meeting in like a pub, like a private room in a pub, with an Orlesian bard and a Mortalitazi and a Carta assassin, so that's like a dwarf, and an executor who we don't really know about. And I don't know if we've ever learned where executors are supposed to come from. Like that one is a character that was very cloaked and we don't really know much about them. And so that's somebody new for me. I don't know if we know who executors are. But they come together to tell stories about what they've heard Soulless, the Dreadwolf, is doing. And so one of them is like, oh, I heard he wanted to steal the Red Lyrium idol from Kirkwall, which is part of Dragon Age 2, actually. I don't think we've got Red Lyrium in Dragon Age Inquisition, but I don't think we really had talk of the Dragon Age Red Lyrium idol from Dragon Age 2. And that is apparently one of the things that he was like trying to steal. So there was like this whole thing of trying to get this, and then it went from one house to another because it got sold or something. And then the other person was like, oh, well, I was taking these people down to see the dead, and they ended up doing a blood ritual. And so like, you know, weird, interesting things, but all supposed to be related to what Soulless, the Dreadwolf, was doing. And then it turns out that the Orlesian Bard is actually Soulless at the table. I think the reveal was very, very nice because Charter, I think, figures it out before we figure it out, because Charter obviously was part of the Inquisition, knew Soulless from the game. And I think it's a really nice reveal. And Charter, you know, tries to say like, hey, you don't have to bring back the old elven gods, because if you do, bad things are going to happen. Like Soulless says that even in the game and Trespasser and in this story and stuff too, that like it's something he feels like he has to do. It might not be the 100% best thing for everybody in the world, but he's going to do it anyway. He mentions that he doesn't feel like he is a god. He's just prideful and arrogant and things like that. And I guess Soulless, the name Soulless means, I think, pride or something. Somebody mentioned that in one of the stories. So obviously that's the closest relation that we have to Soulless in here. I do also want to mention that the comic collections that we were reading earlier, talking about how like Fenris was in it and how they were trying to make like a new Fenris and stuff, they were using Red Lyrium, and I think they were using Red Lyrium related to the idol as well, not just random Red Lyrium. So I do think that played into it because Charter was in those comics. Charter is dating Tessa, who's one of the mage killers from those comics. Like, they mentioned Tessa in here as well. So like there's definite overlap, especially at least in that story, relating to the comics, which I think is very interesting because the comics are supposed to be canonical. I'm sure that means these are supposed to be canonical as well, especially since we did get introduced to some of the companions in here. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention way earlier, but we get introduced to Lucanus in here, who is one of the Antivan Crows, who's going to be a companion. And there was like one throwaway line that he said, if somebody got a look at his face, he was going to grow a beard, which means he did not have a beard in this story, but I'm pretty sure he has a beard now as a companion, which I just thought was sort of funny. So that's where we're at here. I still have Dragon Age The Missing. And then it is Dragon Age Day, so I think I'm going to see how long it's going to take to download the game and stuff, and we will probably check out some of that. Maybe I'll show you guys a little bit of that as well since we're still here. But yeah, it's time to get the kids ready for school. And then I'm gonna read The Missing. I do have it like right on the end table, right behind me actually. It's like over here. So that's the plan. Got myself my mom's dog for now. Okay, so I have finished Dragon Age The Missing. Solid, not good if I was just going by like this by itself. Like, it's not a 5-star read because it really does leave a lot of stuff open, and I think it's because it is supposed to be going directly into the game. The funny thing is the back actually says a new story leading directly into Dragon Age Dreadwolf, the next game in BioWare's legendary fantasy series, because that's what the game was called until like only a few months ago, and then they changed it to Veilguard, or the Veilguard I should say. It's weird to say the Veilguard when I would just say Dragon Age Veilguard. So it is going directly into the game. So because of that, we don't really have a conclusion here. It is literally just Varric and Harding trying to find Solus. And so Harding is going to be one of the companions. Varric is not, even though he's been a companion in the last 2 games, and I like him a lot. It'll be a little sad that he's not a companion, but they're trying to find him. We do have one part where they're trying to find this like meeting that I guess Solus was supposed to have with somebody who might have been a Venatori. And when they get there, the lady is turned to stone, because I guess Solus could do that like in Trespasser. It's one of his like powers. He could turn people to stone. And while there, they meet 2 Antivan crows, Taya and Viago, who are actually in the story 8 Little Talons. So I like that little throwback. And then from there, they learned there's something potentially like some artifact in the Arlathan forest. And so they go there and they meet some Dalish who are Veil Jumpers, which is one of the factions that we had never heard of previous to the game. And so it's actually in The Missing. I was glad that they brought that up because that's one of the things that we have never heard of before. So I guess they have some sort of ability to jump into the veil and then jump out. I'm very curious about that one. I don't know if I'm going to pick that. I have literally no idea what I'm going to pick. None at all. But I was glad that we had that in there. So they work with these veil jumpers to get to a like temple. And it did have some interesting like murals on there about the Dreadwolf. And I saw some other elf, maybe god things. I don't know. I'm curious to see. But the thing that they were going for is missing. Solus got there first. And then that leads them to, I guess, back to the Venatori and Tevinter. And I guess the Venatori were trying to find the object that Solus got because they want to take over Tevinter. So Solus was like, oh, well, I'm going to prevent them, because he left a note for Varric. He's like, hi, Varric, I know you're coming after me. And so then they go there and find out that Solus set free some slaves. They're working with Neve now, who is a mage, but also like a private investigator type of thing. I can't remember what factions she's supposed to be from. Like, all the companions are supposed to be, I'm pretty sure, a faction. Like, they represent a faction. And so I don't remember what she's supposed to be. But so she helps them. They find some of these elf slaves that were freed. And it turns out they have to stop trying to find Solus because the Venatori have been following them, and now they think the free elf slaves are working with Solus. And so there's going to be a meeting at the docks that night, and they have to go help the slaves so they don't get recaptured, because obviously Varric and Harding are like, slaves should definitely be freed. Varric does make a good point that like Solus specifically freeing slaves means that he probably still has some like heart left, because he's not just leaving bad things to happen. So yeah, that's sort of where we ended. They helped the slaves and Solus is free again. And they mention that Solus probably knows Varric and Harding a little bit too well for them to catch up to him, so they should bring in somebody new. And that's basically where it ends. And I'm sure the somebody new is going to be Rook, the person that you're playing as in the Veilguard. So yeah, I mean, again, solid. Every single, I guess, like issue of this had new character art, which I don't personally like. I don't like it when the character art changes too much, but solid, just not perfect if it was like I was just reading it by itself. I liked that we got introduced. Oh, they also talked about the shadow dragons. Again, not as much as the veil jumpers, but that's another faction as well. They mentioned the shadow dragons have been helping the freed slaves and stuff. So I don't 100% know about everything. I don't think Neve is a shadow dragon, but maybe she is. I don't remember who is supposed to be what. But yeah, so we are now officially caught up on all of the Dragon Age tie-in media leading up to the Veilguard. I definitely like that we've gotten companion information, but not all of them, because like we do still have like Balara and Tosh, who have just never been in the stories, or Davrin, who is a Grey Warden. So, I mean, I guess we know a little bit more about like that faction, because like if you played any of the previous games, you know about Grey Wardens. So I like that we've gotten some information a little bit about different factions and different companions, and we've seen some of these other side characters in these stories, like Charter and Tessa and Marius, and now like Taya and Viago, multiple times, that I'm now like just slightly hoping, I'm not gonna have too much hope because you never know, slightly hoping we will see them as some maybe quest givers in the game. I think that would be really fun to see that. Stuff that wouldn't really matter if you haven't read the things, like you're not gonna be like, oh, I need to know who this person is, but it would be fun for people that have read the tie-ins to like see them. I think that would be nice. And so yeah, I'm gonna give my books over here, Tevinter Nights, a 5 stars again. That's what I gave it when I did the ARC reading, because I do think it's a really good collection of short stories. I did miss a little bit of the horror nature of some of the stories near the end, because like I feel like more of the stories near the beginning, not all of them, but some of them had a horror lean to it. And when it goes horror, it definitely goes horror. And like I said, Dragon Age does have some very horrific parts to it, especially like creature stuff. And I know some of the Veilguard stuff that we've seen, because I should be able to actually download it now, and I haven't gone upstairs yet to do that on my computer. But some of the stuff that we've seen, even like some of the old elvish gods that we're supposed to maybe be seeing and fighting against in this new game, they're a little creepy looking. Like they're not like human-esque, you know? So like I'm liking that we're getting some of that horror stuff again. So that is it for the books. Like I said, I think I'm gonna try and download the stuff and maybe take a look at it during, I guess nap time will be the first time. And maybe I'll show you like my character, since I'm obviously not getting this video put up right away. I'm so very excited for it. Like I really, really want to go play like right now, but obviously we can't. It's Halloween tonight too. So like we're going to be a little bit busy, but I'm going to go download that soon, and then maybe we'll take a look at it. Okay, it's 2 o'clock. Elliot is officially asleep for nap, and I have to update my NVIDIA driver for this game. I've never had to do that before, so we're doing it. I have tons of games on Steam, but I guess not this big. Like the last big game I purchased was probably like Baldur's Gate 3. And I've done some like other things that feel big, like Life is Strange, even though I know they're not. I've done Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Like I feel like that was big, but that wasn't on Steam. But I feel like the NVIDIA stuff isn't either. I'll probably show you a little bit of like what I do in here. It's downloading the driver. I probably won't do like a big thing because I want to sort of experience it by myself. But I think I might show you my character once we're done with that. I also don't think I'll have more than maybe like an hour and a half total to play right now, because nap time, and then we have to pick up Presley from school, and then it's Halloween stuff, so maybe I'll have a little bit more time later. But it does seem like the graphics driver is going to take a little while. Oh, well it just jumped up a little bit. We'll see. Okay, so it's like 3:15 now. It did take about 15 minutes to download the driver and then actually boot up Dragon Age. It took a while for like shaders and things like that. But I did want to at least show you the sort of like character creator side. I almost always go for an elf first playthrough, although that's not my canon one in like Origins. We do have different lighting sources, so you can actually see them in different lighting. I think I've been using this one the most. I think I like this the best. But I went for a very dark red hair. freckled skin. I customized everything, a little bit of makeup, but not much, just because I don't prefer like a ton. And I almost always, when I make an elf, make them Dalish, which means I do prefer having the Velicin on them. This is, I think, Gillinane from what I looked up, because I had to double check it. I just wasn't sure what I wanted, but I think I use this one every single time I do a Dalish anyway. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then we do have different classes here. Look, we have class, faction, playstyle, finalize, and summary, and I have to go pick up Presley in like 15 minutes. I almost always start with a rogue as well. I prefer bow and arrow, so we're gonna try the rogue. And just like that, it is the next morning, so I figured I should probably wrap this up. I did play for an hour and 15 minutes when you guys sort of saw me doing character creator. And that was all I did, really. I did character creator for almost an hour, and then I got to a point where I was like 15 minutes before I was supposed to go get Presley, and I needed to do the Inquisitor character creator. So she's not exactly what I would want, but she looks enough different from my Rook that I'm like, okay with it. It'll be fine. And then I got to a point where I could save, and that's all I played. And then last night after the kids went to bed, I played for another less than an hour, I want to say. I don't think I started playing until almost 10, and I was done by like 10:45. But I did like the first main mission and got to the lighthouse. And then I was like, okay, I think I can save here without feeling like I need to continue. Because I know once I like call my companions, which I don't have very many of yet, to do more quests, I would want to continue. And I'm like, I need to sleep. I'll play more today. But so I ended up making my Rook an elf, like I always do on my first playthrough. And I decided to do Veil Jumper because I feel like that lends itself to like a Dalish elf very well. Like that seems to be very common, although you can be anything and be a Veil Jumper anyway. But I also don't feel like we know a ton about it, and I do prefer bows and arrows. I usually play on controller, so like now I'm playing on PC. It's a little bit different. I also do like that the combat has a long range bow, and then you can also switch to dual wielding with just like right click or left click when you're doing combat. So like that so far has made it very, very easy. And I don't think we've had a character that we could do bow and then switch to dual wielding in a while, like easily. So I really do like that. I got to level up once. That's all I've done, like literally not much of anything. So I'm very much looking forward to playing. I don't think I'm gonna do any live stream stuff just because like playing through yesterday, I wanted it to be for me. And then that whole first quest thing that I was doing, like the anticipation of stuff was making me like shake my leg the whole time. And I don't think I would be able to like necessarily like talk through a lot of things and play that way. So I'm just gonna make it for me, at least for now. I really was having a lot of fun with it. I am one of those people that's gonna want to romance somebody, because that's one of the things that you get with BioWare games, is you get those like romantic storylines. And I am a sucker for Grey Wardens and like hopeless mages, basically. Like, so the first game I actually did romance Alistair. The second game, Anders, multiple times. I've tried other romances in other games, but like Anders. And then in Inquisition, it was Solus. So yeah, I'm currently sort of stuck between, do I want Davrin or Lucanus, just because Lucanus is somebody, especially because we read in the Tevinter Nights, I'm very, very intrigued by, not necessarily like background wise who I would normally pick, but at the same time, like I'm curious. So that's it. We made my character. I did finish all the reading. Hopefully, if you are curious about any of this kind of stuff, this helped you, because I just needed to read it, and I'm glad I did, in the fact that like the last time I read Tevinter Nights was back in 2020. I would not have remembered any of it, any character hints, anything in relation to Veilguard. So I think it was worth it. I will still have normal videos coming out, hopefully at normal times, maybe just going back to the 2 times a week, Tuesday and Thursday. The kids are gonna help me film a TBR this weekend to hopefully go up on Tuesday. But otherwise, I'm planning on using a lot of my free time, which is not a lot, but like most of my free time, to play.